Welcome to InventoryBase. Thank you for joining this webinar, which will be about InventoryBase Workstreams and why you should be outsourcing your inventories. My name is Sian, and today we're going to be looking at inventories. We're going to be discussing are landlord or third-party reports better, what makes a good inventory, and what should all reports have. We're going to be looking at outsourcing, whether this is your key to efficiency for your business, for your service and your operation, how to get the best from your provider, and finally, why you should be outsourcing your property reports. So to give a bit of background information, we looked at TDS, My Deposits and DPS, who quite a while ago now actually issued a joint paper, a joint information sheet about the fact of inventories and what that means in regards to evidence and also what they require in order to be able to do their adjudications correctly. And as you can see here, what they're all saying is best practice for a comprehensive inventory to be carried out at the start of the tenancy. And this goes through the check-in and then the interim and the check-out, because you need that comparison, you need that ability to understand what the property looked like at the beginning and then what the property looks like at the end of the tenancy in order to provide the evidence should there be any problems. And they're also setting out here about being clear and defining the terms used to report the conditions, so saying what the report is actually telling the reader, whether there's going to be any use of acronyms or specific words that need to be defined and clearly outlined so that whoever's reading the report understands it and gets it, and also making sure that it's clear enough for any third party to understand without them being present. So effectively, as inventory providers, you should be looking at what the property is showcasing to you whilst you're there at the property, and then capturing that information and making sure it's fact-based and evidence it so that it goes into a report, and then so anybody else that reads your report understands exactly what that property looked like at that point you were there. And that means then the adjudicator can do their job, or even not, it could be a court of law depending on what the issues are, that they can understand and they can use that information to be able to make a fair and reasoned judgment. So that's what TDS and My Deposits and DPS say about a comprehensive inventory at the start of the tenancy. So a question that we get a lot is about the fact of, can landlords do their own reports? First of all, yes, they can. And as you can see here from the TDS guide to check-in and check-out reports, it actually says there's no reason why a landlord cannot produce their own inventory, but there are advantages as well as pitfalls for them doing so. On the one hand, you've got landlord might lack the expertise to complete the process properly. They might not understand exactly what needs to be included, why it needs to be included. And often, because sometimes it's a family home or it's an investment, that the way a landlord looks at a property will be different to a clerk, and they might not necessarily see everything that is wrong with the property. And then that might mean then the right information is not conveyed in the report. And then when it comes to any adjudication, because maybe there's a dispute about the deposit, there's a lot of information that could be missing. And also TDS points out that it might also mean that they can't be objective, that landlords, because they've got that sometimes emotional attachment with that property, it might not be as easy to differentiate between what we or they feel is acceptable and part and parcel of the property, and they're happy with it, that someone else might not necessarily be so. And equally it works the other way around. So landlords can definitely do their own reports. Whether they're better or not is very much down to the evidence, how good that is, and it still needs to be as detailed and as evidence in regards to pictures and or video as you would expect from a third party provider. So there is nothing to actually say that a landlord cannot do their reports, but sometimes they can be limited by their experience and also how they view the property. So are third-party reports any better? In our experiences, certainly from a point of view from InventoryBase and with the clerks and the businesses we work with, and from the reports examples we've seen and how they approach their business, we do find that third-party reports are indeed better. The difference with clerks to landlords is clerks have no material gain in regards to, they don't get anything more out of the property report over and above the fee. They're very much focused on the detail, because that's what their job is, to make sure that everything is captured and that there's nothing missed because either the clerk feels something isn't important, or maybe the landlord has asked that certain things aren't highlighted because they feel that they're okay. So third party reports will always deal and focus on the detail, and that means they're factual based. So we always talk, certainly with InventoryBase Academy, about training, making sure that everything that's within the report is fact based. It can be evidence, it's clear, everyone can understand it, and when they read a report that they get all the information that they need to make that balanced judgment. With third party reports, especially with InventoryBase, there's unlimited pictures and videos. So we know sometimes people feel constrained by either their app that they're working with, or maybe also their time. But with InventoryBase app, the system allows you to take multiple pictures, rapid fire, which is like one after the other, which means then you're not held to a certain amount. So for me, whenever I'm training clerks, I'm always saying make sure that every single picture that is included in the report is meant to be there, that they have a purpose, because there's no point in taking loads of pictures just because you think it looks nice. They've got to do something. They've got to showcase something, either something that you're saying in regards to your description, or something you're saying in regards to the condition and or action that you might assign. And by having unlimited pictures and video, it means then you're not constrained. You're not having to think, well, I've only got 5 pictures that I can take for that particular field, so therefore I've got to make sure that each picture is exactly what I want. Unlimited pictures and video just means that you can capture everything you need. And sometimes you could be looking at 40 to 50 pictures. You could be looking up to 1,000 pictures, depending on the property size. So you're not limited, and that's a key thing with third-party reports. Clerks and inventory companies are very well versed in capturing all the issues and defects. And because they are third party, and again, they've got no vested interest or material interest in the property, what they see is what they capture, which if we go back to landlords' view of the property, they might skirt over things thinking they're okay, whereas a third party provider would look at an issue or a potential problem or a cleanliness issue or the general cleanliness of the property and make sure that that's all captured. So then it's very clear then as to what the property looks like, so the tenant knows what they're taking on, where the responsibilities lie, and to make sure that they give the property back less fair wear and tear. So a third party will ensure that everything is captured in the property regardless. So we're not worried about whether a landlord potentially doesn't want something in the property because they think it's okay or they think the cleanliness is acceptable. Our job is to make sure that everything is captured correctly. And that means we're objective. All of our reports are based on fact that we can evidence. We often talk in our training about objective and subjective evidence. So the difference is with subjective, it's about opinion, whereas objective is about fact. So what we're saying and what we can prove it, and we prove that by providing the evidence through the pictures and video. Our service is also impartial from a clerk point of view. That means then we are not looking at or concerned either about the landlord, the agent, the tenant. We're looking at the property, and our main focus, or the main focus in my opinion should be, is the independent adjudicator and or court of law. If we can get all the information in there correctly and make sure that they have everything they need in order to make a balanced judgment, then we've done our job well. And by being impartial, we're making sure that we're not showing bias towards any individual, and that's either to the landlord, to the agent, to the tenant. Our evidence and our focus is on what we can prove and what is fact. And by doing that, we are less emotive. We are able to not get to be honest with you, hung up on the fact that maybe this is our property, it's our family home, or it's the marital home, or it's been in the family for years, or we're heavily invested from an investor point of view. We have no emotional attachment to the property, which means, again, we can be impartial, we can be objective, we can be fact-based, because our job is there to report on what we see, what's at the property, and obviously if we can see it, then the tenant can see it as well, and anybody else involved in the tenancy process. So by taking that emotion out of it, we're able to stick to what we understand and know to be factual, and then that way then we can make sure the report is as best as it can be. So when we're talking about whether a landlord report is better or a third party report is better, on balance, for us and for me, and certainly when I talk to tenants and landlords as well, that in the main it makes sense for a third party because of all of those specific factors that we just discussed. So what should all reports have? So certainly they should definitely have detailed descriptions. So if you're in a room, you should be highlighting all the components of a room: the door frame, ceiling, walls, lighting, switches, sockets, skirting, flooring, and then and heating as well. And then anything what we call movable items like your furniture items, but they should be detailed. You should be able to showcase exactly what each item is by giving a very detailed description. It doesn't have to be War and Peace, but it certainly needs to be detailed enough so again anybody reading the report who's never visited the property understands and sees exactly what you're seeing through your written word, through your report. Comprehensive condition comments, absolutely vital, especially when it comes to checkout, because a tenant needs to understand what they're taking on in regards to the property, whether there's any issues, and what they're responsible for in regards to when they give it back, so that it's very clear. They know where those responsibilities lie. They know that they have to give the property back taking into account fair wear and tear, and by having comprehensive condition comments, it's very clear then exactly where everybody's responsibilities lie. If we stick, for argument's sake, to good condition or good for age, it's too subjective. It doesn't tell us anything, and it doesn't then give us an ability to understand whether there's been any material change at the end. So by having those comprehensive condition comments, everybody in the tenancy process understands exactly what the property is, where the issues lie, and where those responsibilities lie, especially when it comes to dispute. And that's all underpinned by the fact that every report needs the evidence. It needs those pictures or video, depending on how the report has provided that evidence. And that means making sure you've got contextual pictures of the room, so you understand you're in the right room, talking about the right things, that you have all of the evidence in regards to any issues that are seen, as well as also the condition and cleanliness of the property as well. So if you've got dusty skirtings or floor that hasn't been hoovered, your pictures, the evidence will showcase that. And that means then when it comes to checkout, if the property is in the same condition, then there's been no material change. So then you could argue there's no need for any deposit deductions. Equally, if the property has been given back in not so good order, the cleanliness is a lot less. There's more issues. There's damage to items or the flooring or the walls, etc., then it's very clear to understand there's been a material change, and therefore a deposit dispute might then have to come or be taken forward if, of course, then all the parties can't agree. So evidence is very, very much key because it protects everybody. It protects the asset, which is the property for the landlord, but it also protects the tenant's money, which the deposit always belongs to in the first instance. It's not a pot for anybody to dip into. The tenant is entitled to that money back, less any dilapidations, less any issues, as agreed with all parties. And if you have the right report, you can hopefully get to that agreement quite quickly. Reports should also highlight health and safety, which is your smoke alarms, your carbon monoxide alarms, any security measures in regards to locks, keys, making sure that they're all itemised, everything is clearly set out as to what's there so that the property is compliant. And it also means then the landlord's compliant and the tenant is safe. So certainly with InventoryBase templates, you will already have a section there for health and safety, for smoke and carbon monoxide alarms, allows the clerk to identify where each one is, what type it is, and whether they are emitting an audible alarm, audible tone or not, and also highlights where they are missing when they should be there. So it's a very important field. Also the scheduler condition, which kind of like highlights the overall issues or cleanliness of the property, depending on how you do your schedule condition. Some clerks will do it as a cleanliness field, some will do it as a more of a summary of the property report. Whichever way it's done, it should be done consistently all the way throughout the service, throughout the report provision, and making sure that it's very clear as to the limitations and what each comment might or might not mean. And all reports should have key section in it. That means then all the keys that are identified both at the property or handed over at check-in to the tenant and then again at checkout are clearly identified. So that's what all reports should have within their makeup, within the template. So outsourcing of reports, are they your key to efficiency? And the reason I say efficiency is that reports can take a long time. If they're done correctly, they're not a quick 5-minute in you go, take a picture, off you go, and that's it, your job is done. And as part and parcel of that, if you're going to get the right evidence, you're going to need the right type of person doing that report. And if that's not you as a landlord or as the agent or as a property manager, then it makes sense to outsource those to inventory providers, people who are skilled at what they do. They do this as a business, as a service, and understand what needs to be included in a report. And the efficiency comes not only from a time point of view, but from a monetary point of view. Because if you're spending a long time in a property doing your own report, then is that an efficient use of your time? Is that an efficient way to spend your day when perhaps you could be outsourcing that to a professional who could do the report to a much better standard for you, and then you can go and concentrate on the things that may be generating you more money, sourcing new properties, dealing with management issues rather than having to spend time at the property. And from a point of view of outsourcing, it gives you the ability to be a lot more flexible both with your time and also the cost. The benefits of outsourcing means that you can access trained clerks, and certainly with InventoryBase Workstreams, you have a network of vetted, local, trained and professional clerks who use the InventoryBase system, understand the need for very good and very detailed evidence. They work to similar templates within the system, and it means then you've got a consistent service, which means then when you outsource to Workstreams, you know that you are going to get a clerk that is there to do the job correctly, to provide a report, provide a service that you can rely on. And another benefit of outsourcing is the ability to scale up and down. Now, during the last year or so, report numbers have been down quite a lot for many providers, mainly because of the stock that's been available, because of all the constraints, with the whole pandemic issue. However, we are soon starting to come out of lockdown, so there's quite a possibility that we will see a lot more work, a lot more jobs being requested, a lot more properties coming up for letting. So therefore the ability to outsource means you can scale up if you're a property manager, an agent. So if you've got work and more work than you can maybe handle, you can outsource to Workstreams and get the help and benefit of a trained clerk, a trained professional to help you do your reports. And equally, if you go to a quieter period, normally associated with the end of the year, Christmas time, you can scale down without having to worry about the taking on staff, having to pay them wages, paying any monies in regards to time off, sickness, training, etc. So it gives you the ability to scale up and also scale down, and that makes it cost effective. It means then you're not paying out for staff when you don't need them, or you actually can't justify them, or you don't have anything to do. You can call on Workstreams to work with providers as and when you need them for as long as you need them, and it means then you're not spending a lot of money on staff then you can't do anything else with. And that means that you've got an efficient use of resources. So then you can have your staff, your negotiators, if you're an agent, working on gaining more business, looking after your client base, making sure everybody is being compliant from a property management point of view, rather than trying to work out how you're going to send that negotiator out maybe to do some property visits or work. and reports, because again, Workstreams can take care of that in regards to what clerks can provide as a service. Often inventories, check-ins, check-outs, interim inspections, and a variety of other services, which also includes, from a Workstreams point of view, drone footage. So we work with Drone Safe, where you can hire a licensed CAA pilot to carry out videos of property from a maintenance point of view. That be rooftops and aerial photographs through to the estate side of things, where you're looking to showcase and sell the property as part and parcel of your estate agency. So outsourcing to a provider that can do that and more means it's a real good, efficient use of your resources, and it increases your reach. It means then you're not necessarily held to the area that you just work in, because InventoryBase Workstreams is UK wide. So we've got providers, drone safe operatives all across the country, which means then, if you maybe get an instruction from a client that you may be local, but then they maybe look and outsource a property further afield, rather than lose that client to maybe another agent, you can still facilitate their needs by using Workstreams, getting the reports done, having the interims, doing the aerial reports, etc., and it can all be done within the account with either the same provider or with a network of providers that you can trust. And also with Workstreams, you have the ability to outsource interim inspections and also live inspections using the InventoryBase system. So there's a huge amount of outsourcing available within the system using InventoryBase and InventoryBase Workstreams. So that makes it very efficient use of both your time and your valuable resources, and of course then the resources of your landlord as well, because with the tenant fee ban, with the constraints to monies at the moment, with what's been happening over the last year, plus also the government legislation that's coming in, tax, the requirement for safety and security within the home, there's a lot of financial issues in regards to managing a property, managing it effectively, and making sure that every penny counts. So by outsourcing and using that money and that ability to work with providers right away across the UK really does make a huge amount of sense. But if you're going to outsource, you also need to get the very best from your provider. When you're working with people, especially if they're not local, in regards to your portfolios in London, but you've also got some work maybe in Leeds or further afield or down in Bournemouth or Portsmouth, you need to be able to make sure that service, that clerk, that property service is doing the very best and making sure that they're doing carry out your instructions to the best of their ability. And the way to get the best from your provider is very clear communication, making sure they understand exactly what you want, how you want it, when you want it. As part of the Workstreams system, asks you when you're booking your report to make sure that it's very clear as to what the property is, where it is from a dress point of view, how many rooms, how many receptions, how many bathrooms, and also any additional areas. And in that way, then the clerk and the service provider can make a bid on your job through the Workstream system that will reflect what it is that they're being asked to do, and it makes it competitive, and it means then you can get the best out of the system. And by having those clear instructions, then the clerk knows exactly what you want, they know how you want it, they understand whether there's any limitations. Maybe there's, parking limitations. Maybe there's limitations in time. You might have a quick turnaround, or there's limitations in access, or actually how they can actually carry out the job whilst at the property. So by giving them very clear instructions, it means then you're not having to field loads of questions as you go through. The clerk knows exactly where they need to go, what they need to do, what the instructions are in regards to picking up keys, dropping off keys, having keys in the property, any security concerns. So by giving clear instructions, you can really get the best from your provider. And this goes also into your clear advice, your clear guidance, so that everybody understands exactly what everyone wants from the service, both the landlord, the property manager, the agent, it can be the tenant, it can be actually another provider who are looking to outsource their work. By giving that clear advice, that clear guidance, everyone knows exactly what is needed from the service, and then everyone can deliver to that level. And then if there is any issues, there's an ability within the workstream system to discuss that, rectify that, and then if not, then take that matter further. But that hopefully should never ever be a problem if you've kept that clear communication line open all the way through, given those clear instructions, and made sure that your advice, your guidance, and your wants and your needs from that service is very, very clear. So why should you be outsourcing? Well, there are clear benefits to outsourcing, clear benefits from a financial point of view, from a time and efficiency point of view, and it's a very easy system and service to both access and to use. Certainly from the workstream side of things, adding a property is very easy. You can do it as within your own account if you've got an InventoryBase account, or you can use the external template, the external sheet to actually say, which is on the website, to say exactly what it is that you want, the address, the details, when you want the report done. So you can choose the date of the property, the visit, and the type of report that might be required: inventory, check-in, interim, a live inspection, a self-service inspection, and or the checkout. And then you submit that into the InventoryBase Workstream, and then you await the bids. So what happens is that all the providers on the Workstreams system will then get an alert for the job that comes up within their catchment area, so whatever postcodes are operating in, and then they can bid on that. So they can see what the job is, make a bid, and then you, as the person looking for that job to be completed, can then look at the list of suppliers. You can look at the quality of their report through the samples that are provided. You can look at their ratings, so you can understand how other people have rated their services, so you can make an informed decision, and also look at what the cost involved is. I've put cost last, and I've purposely done that because one thing I always advise people is not to just focus on the cost, because it's not just about how cheap a service is. It should never be about that. It should always be about the quality of the service, the quality of the report, the quality of the service provider. They should be your overriding deciding points when you decide exactly who it is you're going to work with. But once you have decided which supplier you're going to work with, you agree the bid. The payment is made up front so that it sits in an account, so you know it's paid for. The clerk knows that they're going to be paid for when the job is being complete. And then you basically sit back, wait for the job to be completed, and have the report delivered to you automatically through the Workstream system onto either your IB account or to the online account, and then you get the opportunity to rate your provider. Now, all the way through this process, you've got the ability to talk to the provider, ask questions, maybe offer additional instructions or clarify any instructions that the clerk may have asked from you. And that way then, again, we're going back to what we were saying earlier on about that clear communication to make sure everybody knows exactly what's going on, and then that way then everyone understands exactly what's required of them and deliver a service to the level and quality that you quite rightly expect. So that's why you should be outsourcing. Oh, excuse me. Yep. So that's why you should be outsourcing to the Workstreams system. If you do have any queries, any questions, you can contact us on the number as shown, or you can email us at sales@inventorybase.com, and you can also go onto our website inventorybase.co.uk and then click on /workstreams, or have a look at the actual website itself if you've got any other queries and questions. So InventoryBase Workstreams, a great way to outsource your work, outsource your jobs, your reports, your aerial photography, your inspections to vetted, local and qualified inventory clerks. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sián Hemming-Metcalfe, and I look forward to seeing you on our next webinar.